Since our apologies are coming slightly behind schedule, I have to pull things together, clips together, videos together to give you at least a near perfect show. Welcome to International Forum. I am Wilson Marshall. Today is all about the lives and times of Queen Elizabeth and of course the reaction trailing his death. The good side of it, of course not so good side of it. We're going to go through the pre-colonial and of course colonial, then post-colonial era. We'll take a look at also where UK stands today, because she was the Queen of England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and they were able to stop all the sporting activities because they want to honor the late Queen. Before we dive into that, let's take a round. Let's just go around the world picking one or two stories making rounds. Yes, if you know about the death of Queen Elizabeth, you might also be aware of the assumption to the throne by Prince Charles, now King Charles. Yeah, he has assumed office. He has entered into the office, and right now he's doing everything which the former queen is known to have done. And according to him, he's trying to bring everyone together. Don't forget, you have some of the royalties that are not in tune with the royalty standard. But right now he's saying that everybody must be on board. Everyone must come together. That's what King Charles is doing right now. King Charles III is saying, look, we should just sheath our sword. We should bury our hatchets. We have to work to take the kingdom to a new pedestal. But after saying all this, immediately let them know the heir apparent, yes, his children, that immediately after he passes on, the baton will be given to his children, and of which, it's like, a genealogical thing. They don't have any issues with that. But what really bit me hollow is that immediately after the Queen's demise, it didn't take up to 1 week. The announcement was made. It didn't take up to 1 week. Inauguration of the new king was made. It didn't take up to 1 week. They want to bury her. Anyway, my analyst will throw more light on that. How come it's so different from our climes this way? You know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that in the course of this show. So, like they used to say, long live the king, King Charles III. Hope he'll be able to continue from where the Queen stopped and do better than what the Queen did. Now let's move straight down to what is happening in Ukraine. The war to reclaim some parts of Ukraine is still very much on, and this time around Kharkiv is the target. And right now Zelensky is saying that they've been able to recapture and liberate some villages that the Russian troops captured, because they saw some relics of Russian artillery, saw some relics of abandoned weaponry by the Russians, and they are saying it was a shock the Russians couldn't stand. Big thanks to the weapon supply to them by the U.S. and of course to the ally. They were able to use the long-range weapon to displace the Russian, and they're going to reclaim every inch of land taken by Russia from Ukraine. That's what Zelensky is saying, that it was a massive fight. It was truly a fight to behold, in the sense that Ukrainian soldiers are going to report to their ground where there are superior firepower given to them by their allies vis-a-vis the U.S. and NATO. They were able to recapture some villages, but Russia saying that that was not really what happened. Okay, yes, they had to do some tactical withdrawal because they want to get some logistics in place and all that. And this chemist rumor that some officers in the Russian army are signing petition for President Vladimir Putin to resign. Just some fragments of them. So they don't know the sense that the war is making, that they are sick and tired of this war, that Putin should step down. These are just fractions or fragments of some of these military, but nobody there came out in open to say it. So they are just rumor, regulation that is being just filtering here and there. But Putin, according to reports, they want to strategize to see how they can really come back. Let's see how far this war will go, because right now it has cost the world a lot. It has cost Europe a lot. It has cost Ukraine a lot. It has cost Russia a lot. It has cost everyone directly or indirectly involved in the war a lot. Because in war, There are no winners, no losers, just only casualties. Finally, let's move straight down to Kenya, where Ruto has been inaugurated as the new president of Kenya, William Ruto. Don't forget that Uhuru Kenyatta tried to, broker peace between Raila Odinga and Ruto. He was able to make them come together to see sense in, living in unity, living in oneness. He made them to confess their feelings to each other. In the clip, I saw the video, I was moved emotionally. It was like, please, brother, forgive me. All I've said about you in course of the election, before the election, during the election, after the election, I am so sorry. Please forgive me. That's what Ruto told Odinga. And of course, Odinga also looking at Ruto as his son was like, he did the same. Okay, fine. I'm sorry for taking it this far. Okay, there's no need for people to circle themselves over elections. All right, you've won. Let bygone be bygone. And of course, Uhuru Kenyatta also made his own speech about the just concluded election, urging Kenyans to come together to forge, a path of progress. No more fight between Raila Odinga and, of course, William Ruto, because, before Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga settled, many persons died because of both of them. You're talking about the clans, the tribe, the village. You're like, I'm for Odinga, I'm for Ruto, and that fight went on for many years until finally it was time for Uhuru Kenyatta to hand over the baton. According to report, he supported Odinga, but people supported William Ruto. So people's voice played out. People's choices were upheld, and it was like, wow. And right now, Supreme Court also decided on the faith, saying that there's no need for us to procrastinate or postpone this issue. William Ruto is the winner. Immediately after that, there was a swearing in of President William Ruto. Let's see how far it can take Kenya with all of this happening. Now, back to the discussion of the day. I have a lecturer, a clergyman, public affairs commentator, human rights activist. Join me to welcome Honorable Frank Amego. Thank you so much for coming on today's show. I appreciate your coming.
Thanks so much.
For almost 3 weeks or 4 weeks, you've not been here with me on International Forum. But thank God you are here.
Thank you.
All right. Now, when the demise of the Queen filtered into the atmosphere, what went through your mind?
Yes, because when I got to read about Queen Elizabeth II, I really appreciated all she did while on earth. The way she came on board, at the age of 21, she got married. At the age of 25, she became queen. The father was a sudden death that happened to the father in the year 1952. And wow, what a young queen she would have been at the age of 25. I was married 4 years after, and she became queen. And since then, she's been performing excellently well, trying to unify the kingdom and all that. It also gladdens my heart to know as a person that I could see the person that spearheaded the colonization of some African countries. Of course, Nigeria being part of it. The life she has lived has helped so greatly to bring about peace in the territories of British colonies. Unlike the French colonies, they are more often than not at war with each other. But right here in Nigeria, the money of the late queen is not more of crying. It's a thing of joy. Not that she died and maybe like bad riddance to good rubbish. No. People made fun of it out of joy and happiness. That the Ashwebi is ready. We also have all manners of Ashwebi. To the extent once somebody posted, adieu, Iyenogi. It's time to be the mother of the whole world. So I want to use this opportunity to encourage all traditional leaders to draw a cue from what late Queen Elizabeth II did. And I got to know that there was a Queen Elizabeth I. Why did she choose to be the second? Queen Elizabeth I, died in 1603. And Ashin came on board later on, I mean the second. And the Queen Elizabeth I was 69 years old, and she reigned for 45 years. And from that calculation, the late Queen Elizabeth II did better, much better, than the first. So that is a point of the fact that whatever opportunity you're given as an officer or you're asked to perform a duty, you draw inspiration from the previous and tend to do far better than you met it. So she did better than she met the kingdom. And for these long years, if I'm not mistaken, 70, she should be the longest serving queen in the whole of UK. And our 70th year on the throne that was done this year, that was in February, I guess, and she was still looking a bit healthy until COVID struck her on February 20 this year, and she recovered. And going by her age, a lot of the internal organs would have been performing optimally as it were if she was much younger. And she survived it. I like the way she passed on the 8th of September. We could call that a glorious passing on to glory.
Glorious exit.
Yes, glorious exit. Because she wasn't incapacitated. She wasn't a challenge to the family members. And she was able to hold on to life till she passed on. And I was wondering, when now King Charles III was now brought in as a king, I said, wow, your mother was 25 when she was a queen. And look at an elderly man taking over from a young lady, we calculate at the point of entry. So I doubt if King Charles will be able to do as much as the mother did. Right. Looking at the number of years lying before him.
Okay, now let's take a look at the late queen. During the time she fell ill, her recovery, and of course subsequent demise, the way the British personalities took it, the way the royals took it was like the world need to know ASAP. But in our own climate, it's like a hush-hush thing. Why that disparity?
It's very obvious. One of the ways to know a poor man differently from a rich man, if a poor man is going to talk about his birthday, he will say, I'm +1. It's a sign of poverty. Whenever you mention, I am +1, why are you hiding your age? Just recently, the climax was 2 days ago on Sunday, when His Excellency, the royal, Chief Doctor Isama of Benin celebrated his birthday. It wasn't written as +1. It was mentioned 88. So the rich, in essence, would display their age. I am this old. So in poverty, you say I'm +1 because nobody dares know your age. They will now be able to assess your achievements or otherwise. In African climes, a king passes on. They want to kind of make it as if it was an immortal that died. Of course, immortality does not die. If a king dies, it means a king died. There's no point hiding it. This is the first time I'm saying that a queen will pass on. The date is known. A lot of climes in African leadership, as well as the traditional, nobody knows anything about it. Any ceremony about the burial, nobody knows. On Monday next week now is the grand finale where she'll be interred. If you go to UK and some other parts of Europe, you'll see the celebration. As at yesterday, some major parts, as the Westminster, condoned off in preparation for Monday's final event. So you see everybody seeing what is happening in UK by the burial of late Queen Elizabeth II. Now again, the casket was moved about.
The 4 kingdoms.
Yes, moved about. So to me, if a king passes on in Africa, we should celebrate it. Not, we want to mystify it. So UK has demystified it now, which is a lesson for some African, if not African, traditionalists. So what I see there, the various things put in place to have a new king. There was no hibernation. Let's go and keep the person for 100 days. Let's go and do this. Nothing like that happened. In a short while, a new person was declared because there's no vacuum in leadership. So everything was put in place. I wish I could attend that. I know the Ashwebi is everywhere. Soft copies, they're everywhere. So if that could happen to a queen, we could say she's a global queen, or she was a global queen, not localized to a particular place. Her death could be announced. Now I know that Queen Elizabeth II passed on the 8th of September 2022. Queen Elizabeth I passed on the 24th of March 1603. So these dates are known publicly. But in a lot of African rulership or kingdoms, there's no history. By that, we are not helping ourselves
and
to
history
grow.
is important.
It's important. For you to move forward, you must get inspiration from what happened previously and move on. We cannot teach our children now. They say, who was the first king of so-so place? You don't know. How old? You don't know. Everybody is +1.
When he did die, you don't?
Yes. So that's why I say it's a sign of poverty. Of course, Africa is the poorest continent in the world. It's a sign of poverty to say the king is +1. How can you be +1? Mention your actual age. That takes my mind back to when we were growing up. You get to your local primary school, they'll ask you, what's your father's name? You mention your son's name, say, okay, we know. But who was that name? Say, my grandfather. What's your own father's name? I don't know. Because nobody will tell you. The worst part of it is, if they ask you what your mother's name is, you will never know. You can say, Mama Sunday. Because that's what they call her in the neighborhood. You don't know anything about your family background. So now, what has happened now is an eye-opener to a lot of African leaders. So they draw inspiration from it that we are not immortals now. We were born and we are going to die. They don't make it as if a spirit came to rule us in Africa. So the spirit has gone back. These are human beings as having flesh and blood. So we should learn to interact with one another, learn things from one another, and from there, now we are talking about the life and times of Queen Elizabeth II. Do you know that January 13th this year, January 13th, Prince Andrew was stripped of his military ties and his Royal Highness title was stripped of them because of an allegation which in a way was proven that she sexually assaulted a teenager years ago. So to remove the shame from the royalty, they stripped him of that. But can such a thing happen in Africa? You come and say, maybe now you are 50 years old, someone will accuse you while you were 27. You stole Momo at Tuselu Market. For you to come out publicly, maybe on the social media, you'll be arrested. That you are casting aspersions on royalty. Whether or not you did it, that's another ball game. The next thing, Nigeria police will handcuff you. You need to start begging. When you have the facts and figures, my friend, they will say, if you had the facts and figures, don't you know where to go to? Why didn't you go to the palace of social place and they would have resolved it instead of going to the public domain? So to remove shame, I'm sure emotionally, this year, January, that would have affected the queen and the palace. They said the best thing, any relationship you have had with military or the royalness appellation given to you, be removed from you to save our name. So say kudos to late Queen Elizabeth II for all she did to unify the various countries that they colonized, and by extension other parts of the world.
We are coming to that right now. Let's go to history. Someone, a professor of history, so to speak, in the U.S. tweeted a very, very strong-worded, how will I put it now, a letter, open letter or script, or will I say feelings about her own feelings about the late queen. She wasn't really pleased with the queen. Talking about her role in colonization. Well, saying that so many unprintable or speakable things that she said because of, according to her, the role the empire displayed in Africa in the course of the colonial era. What's your take on that?
Yes, well, with due respect to the Nigerian professor, if you have a time to look at a thing dispassionately, which she didn't do, you will observe that if something happens to you at any time, you ask yourself, what role did I play in this calamity happening to me? That brings about fairness in judgment. If anything happens to you, it was caused by A, it was caused by B. It's an African challenge, whereby you go to worship centers, you are killing the devil, you are not talking about your contribution to your challenge. If you're going to push the blame to the late queen, she didn't come here to start moving from Sokoto to Kaduna to Benin. She sent people, and they gave her reports. That professor did not outline or bullet the points of the involvement of the traditional rulers in Africa. Slave trade, they came to meet you. Can I have 50 able-bodied young men? You said, I have 100. You traded your brothers and sisters, fellow black men, for a piece of mirror, for a small bag of salt, for one thing or the other, and now you are coming back that the British did this or did that. Were we forced to do that? They paid us. No matter how poorly paid we were given, we got paid for it. Thank God the artifacts that were stolen then, they are being to return them. And as they are returning them, back home, people are fighting. Verbal war. And it will go to the left, it will go to the right. So is it the British now you're still going to blame for that? So the assertions of that professor should have been looked at from both ends.
But she said a slave trade began with the dispensation of the queen and ended also with the dispensation of the queen.
That
was the strong
just a double coincidence. Double.
Are you not saying that it was coincidental?
Yes, just like it was when I entered the studio that the light went off. So did I put off the lights? It happened while I was around. The slave trade, there's nowhere it's written or it's said, mentioned at any point, that Queen Elizabeth II came to Igun Street in Benin to buy slaves. Look at simple O-level economics. You say, what's economics? They'll tell you it has to be buying and selling. The buyer, the seller, and the commodity. A buyer came to the market. The sellers were not around because no commodities. The buyer will go back. The buyer came and met with a seller. If there was no commodity, the seller goes back. But now the buyer came. There was a seller and several commodities, which are the human beings then. And they were ready to say 3 for 10 naira. There was no way in history written or said that the colonial masters came and forcefully took the slaves. The owners, in quote, were compensated. If you allow me, they were duly compensated. As agreed. Then the federal government was agreeing with negotiations then. But now, federal government has to nothing is happening. At that time, no, let me land.
I know you go to that point.
No, let me land. So the point is, as agreed, how much? 2 pence. Okay, take 2 pence. Go away. When next can we come for more? So no, if you just wait now, I give you 30 again.
But is that exploiting the people?
Who exploited? Who exploited?
Because they say she's at the center of it all. That was not pure exploitation because they did it in her name.
Maybe she will.
In the name of the queen, we conquer this land. Don't forget that also, because that was the pain of that professor. According to what she said, many of the ancestors lost their lives, all in the name of the late queen.
You're talking about, there was only invasion. Even the Benin massacre. Some Benin's compromised. Otherwise, they would have been able to gain entrance through Gele to come to Benin Kingdom. Some Benin's compromised. This is gazetted somewhere. You can still have access to such information. So there is no way. It's not like, what are you going to blame? The horse or the rider? Until you get on the understanding that if the horse refuses the rider can never make any attempt to climb it. So if the horse is willing, say, where are we going to right now? And the rider says, why not? Let's go. If the colonial masters came the first time to buy slaves, and our African leaders sold some persons out, and they now realized, these are our future generations. We made a mistake. And they came back to buy again. So sorry, we are not selling again, please. It was a mistake on our part. Please, can we, the money you gave to us then, I want to return them. Can we have our people back? I'm sure the slave trade stopped because the slave masters refused to buy. There's a slave trade still going on now, whereby the economy of this nation has nosedived. People are running, doing all manners of menial jobs. That's another civilized way of slave trading. So we cannot categorically blame it on the late queen. The prof, I'm sure by now, should have been remorseful to say, no, I didn't mean it that way. By the time you hear some other arguments from other quarters, your book or your petition is not complete. If there is a horse, there's a rider, you don't blame it exclusively on one person. They came to buy your brothers and sisters. It's even demeaning to say slaves. They came to buy your brothers and sisters, and you agreed to sell them off. So they are coming back to say, why should they buy? You are not considering why should you sell. If as they came, then you're not going to sell any person from Africa. They'll go back. They can go to Asia and some other continents. You agreed. It's not happening to today, whereby people are enslaved. You are working and you're not being paid. Some that are being paid are paid below standard. It's not slavery. Whereby some persons are employed in an office as casual staffs. Is that not slave trade within our own locality? It's not slavery to be at home, you are afraid. Your roads are not measurable. There is no light. There is no water. Nothing whatsoever. What's slavery is more than that. I'm sure some Nigerians, I saw it on your scroll bar now, that about 500 medical doctors, senior medical doctors, have left Nigeria for greener pastures. If things were okay here, why would professionals leave? If they leave, they are going to leave on the platter of gold. But now everybody is looking for one way or the other to run away.
So you're not saying that the queen is not to be blamed from this?
For nothing.
What about the apartheid regime in South Africa and of course some other parts of Africa?
Yes.
All in her name.
You could say that. This was the illustration I gave to you. I came to your studio and something got missing. It's like, where's the microphone? Say, it was when I came that this is
the heart of it. Don't forget that.
There is no record wishing that she masterminded the apartheid in South Africa. Some whites were living there for centuries. And they now, in a way, accepted to be part and parcel of South Africa.
All right, now you just want to go for a break. We'll return. We'll continue with this discussion all about the life and times of Queen Elizabeth II. Don't go away. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you just joined us, this is International Forum. We're taking a look at the life and times of the late Queen Elizabeth II. And I have Honorable Frank Amego here with me in the studio, sharing his opinions and, of course, thought on the late Queen's. But, the question has been emanated by so many quarters, talking about the colonial era, talking about the slave trade, talking about apartheid regime, talking about so many other things that happened under her watch. So, back to the apartheid regime. You're making your profile to quote you off for that break.
Yes.
Take it up from there.
That
you said it was coincidental. People may find it difficult to believe that it's coincidental.
As we earlier posited,
yes,
the late Queen Elizabeth II was on that throne for 70 years. And by simple extrapolation, she was 74 years old in marriage. Because her husband passed on last year. With that long stretch, 74 years, a lot of good things, bad things, ugly things would have happened. So there's no way why you want to be fair in your judgment to say that she was the one. even in parenting, if you ask your children secretly, without the parents knowing, to assess parents, you'll be so shocked what your children will write about you. That daddy is always eating the fattest meat. He gives us the bone. They will have a long list of that. But along the line, we now push the paper aside, now discover that, who paid your school fees? Say, my daddy. Okay. What school I attend? Is it the best? Is the best. So at that point, it's human to say, as I say, there's no profession in humanity. She didn't she didn't get to answer to a query that you were responsible for the apartheid in South Africa. There was no formal allegation that she needed to answer to. There was none. So why, as she's dead now, you are raising up such issues? Such issues should have been raised and taken to ICC, International Criminal Court, and let's trash it out. In Benin, they will tell you,
could you please interpret?
Why not? You don't keep enmity with death. So she's gone now, you are alive. Everybody will pass on. So why would you wait till after 8th day of September to air out your long-lasting grievances? Why now? Should have challenged Queen Elizabeth II long before now. It's just like what late Ojukwu said during the burial of late Awolowo, that Awolowo would have been the best president that would have happened to Nigeria. Why didn't you say this while he was alive? If you had made such a proclamation, the whole of southeastern Nigeria mobilized them, let's vote Awolowo in. So there are some comments you make. You have to be guided and guarded. So what that prof said, that I would have accepted it if she had created a balance. And if you're going to apportion blames about slavery in Africa, you push like 70 to us and give her 30. Then for the apartheid South Africa, they colonized South Africa and they discovered that it was a place to live in. And there was no law at that time restricting them from staying there. They dwelt there and they moved on. Yeah. It's just like in Benin, for instance. If you see a very good establishment, a thing to reckon with, they say no, it's owned by Lebanese. Where are the Nigerians? In UK, for instance, Nigerians have the largest number of churches in UK. Chinese, Lebanese have the largest of companies. So we missed it. As we missed it, we are not coming back to apportion blame so people that took advantage of it. Just last week, I read in papers that more than 2,000 Britons, Italians, and one other country naturalized. They naturalized. They became Nigerians. So there's no law stopping them, as Nigerians will naturalize elsewhere. So that you are still putting the apartheid South Africa blame on late. I'm using the word late because she's late. Late Queen Elizabeth II.
Because even this person, Julius, yes, a very highly placed a person in government in the house in South Africa. I didn't say something nice about the Queen. He said due to the apartheid regime that they just can't forget. They can't erase it from their memories. He never said something nice about the Queen.
Yeah, it's his own opinion.
Yes.
And that opinion will not even fly. Because there is no human being that does not have enemies. And even as human beings, some people complain about God. Some Nigerians complain that in geography, they forced it on us that the earth rotates. Why are we still here? Why have we not rotated to South Africa, to US? So there is no attempt to apportion blames.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, Queen Elizabeth II was alive. Why did they bring forth all these allegations? Now she's dead. Are you going to wake up from the casket now to answer to all this? That's allegation in futility. She cannot answer any of this. Why she was alive? Why did you bring them forward and begin to sell it out, and some minds begin to reason with it that, okay, this is the way it is, that's the way it is. Maybe by then, just maybe, Queen Elizabeth II, while she was alive, would have apologized. But now, there's no statement that she can make now, whether or not she was involved, directly or indirectly. So, whatever statements they make against her, to me, is in futility. They just wasted that energy.
All right, all right. Now, according to reports, she was a great queen because of lots of achievement. Because she achieved so much. Some hit the industrialization of the world on her. Because of during her time, her reign, that the world, so to speak, exploded when we talk about technology, industries, and all that. Take it up from there.
Yes, she did so well. In fact, from the lips of Nigerians, there is no king in Africa that has ever died that the whole kingdom or empire will be jostling for Ashwebi. That shows she lived and died in a way that everybody is happy about. So in our time, you have a lot of good things. Someone can tell you about me and start to cast aspersions on me. If you're not careful, you believe. There are people who say they are blackmailers. So all these ones they are saying they are blackmailers. Why did you bring up all these things all this while? A lot of good things have also happened while she reigned as a queen of UK, and by extension, her influence all over the world. If you just oppose things she did well, or things that happened in that time that were very good, and things that happened that weren't bad, or good and bad, you put them together and see whether she can score a good grade.
On a scale?
Yeah, she can. She would. So you're just looking at one small fault and you are doing as if she was a tyrant. She wasn't. She lived peacefully. If, as I said before, on the 13th of January, where Prince Andrew's royalness was removed from him, who is that African leader? Either a elected member or traditional ruler that will do that. It can't happen. It's unthinkable. All over the world. She has assented to it that by that allegation, they went to court. On the 20th of January, Prince Andrew made an attempt to pay some money, undisclosed sum of money, in an attempt to appease everybody, but still, the palace agreed that you have been stripped, you have been stripped. You appear like a disgrace to the royalty. So that alone will show to the whole world that she lived a good life. She never took rubbish or nonsense for granted. To allow your son publicly, globally, to say, you are no more His Royal Highness Prince Andrew. That alone, no matter what she would have done wrongly, is left for the whole world to say, to her credit, that she lived and died well.
She lived and died well. Well, when we're going through watching her commentaries, like, she has this thing for acting. People like saying that maybe secretly she wanted to be an actor. She featured in the 007 series, featured in so many other kind of little series. Just to make her subject very, very happy. You see any African leader doing that? As in coming out in showbiz, so to speak, right now in movies or in commercials.
Well, if you allow me to mention a name.
I wouldn't want to mention any name, please. For some good
Otherwise,
reasons.
there was a senator somewhere in North Central that is trying to be an actor. But now you are mentioning traditional leader or at a higher level.
Yeah.
From their throne, they can't come down 1 inch. That's a high level of humility, of meekness, to stoop low, to fraternize with the ordinary. So we can give it to her that nothing was wrong with her through her reign, a 70-year reign in UK. So she did everything possible. There is no human being that can please every other person. In the first instance, can you even please yourself? As I'm here now, if I wanted to please myself, I won't be here. I should have been somewhere now, maybe chicken and chips, but I can't afford it. So if you're not asking me, I should get for you, and I refused. You don't be thinking it's too stingy. Have I done that for myself? So whatever the queen did, or whatever happened in her reign, All glory to God.
All right. Now, do you see King Charles III being able to really fit into her shoes? It's colossal, according to report. It's so big. Can he do his best from your own analysis?
King Charles may not be able. Age first. Age first will be a challenge. And our comment would not like to say fit into somebody's shoes. Of course, we know it. We have we have different sizes of shoes. Yeah. So there's no point trying to fit into a large shoe or a small shoe. Fit into your own shoe size. I'm sure all these years whereby then Prince Charles was wondering, when would this thing get to my turn? Whenever it gets to my turn, I will do A, B, C. Now you are the king now. You're going to do the S, Y, Z. So let's allow him some time. I'm sure he would have seen the antecedents of previous kings and queens. I will leverage on it. I'm sure even with the age now, he will still be able to do one or two things. He can.
Now, do you see him, because he said he wants to bring the family back together, do you see him reinstating the so to speak, prince from the lineage of royalty?
He can. Because if he does not make such a statement at this initial stage,
yes,
which appears to be a kind of reuniting the family, that might show some level of tyranny. So that statement was on point. That's going to reunite everybody. But how well it's going to materialize it, time will determine that.
And now what about the case of Prince Harry and Meghan? The one that married an actress. And the move towards the state, saying that they don't have anything to do with the royalty anymore. Do you see King Charles being able to bring them back again to the fold? And will the British accept them?
He can. He's the king now. Anything he says becomes the law. He's the head of administration and all that. So if he can interact with the aggrieved persons, they have or had their reasons for trying to leave royalty. The truth is, if you live in a castle, if you get to a point, you'll be tired. You don't know what's happening, that you cannot walk alone, you cannot park by the roadside and buy bole and granite, and that's what you are craving for. That you must eat this, that.
Yeah.
So they want to just live outside royalty. I'm sure they were seeing other people living freely. They just decided, let me still also live freely. I'm sure as they have lived freely now, they want to come back home.
All right.
I hope the king should be able to do that.
All right, now finally, what advice do you have for traditional rulers that are seeing everything, how the Queen passed on to glory, how the British, UK came together to plan everything, the inauguration of the new king and all that? What lessons should be learned from it?
Several lessons. Maybe I'll mention 2 or 3.
Yeah.
First, you will live on earth, you will leave this earth. Second is that let there be peace while you are still on the throne, or your leadership is still on. Let there be peace. Third, that as much as possible, let our traditional rulers be transparent. The demystification of royalty some days ago has taught a lot of persons some lessons. If a king dies, a queen dies, the person died. And no one person was killed to bury along with, these are dark age things. Some person's lives will have to be lost to bury a king or a queen. As if human beings are different at different levels. God created all of us equal. So what they are doing in the UK is a lesson for all, either political or traditional rulership.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Well, you heard him. Nobody is perfect, but put on a scale. The great Queen Elizabeth II, though she has passed on to glory, according to him and many others, she did well. She did extremely well. Once more, thank you.
You're
We'll
welcome.
do it next week, Tuesday, God willing.